year is 2020. The world has been ravaged by an extraterrestrial invader named COVID, who conquers planets by spawning disease, depression, fear, and anxiety. As society falls into ruin, the clarion call goes out for divine masculines to activate.
A Crystal Sun production.
Yeah. We right back like we left something. What's going
Right.
on? How you feeling?
Man, I am better than all right, to be honest with you. It's been such a wild ride. Tested, definitely patience, first and foremost, because I'm dealing with almost 200 kids. But also just like, I feel like a lot of orders got stretched. I feel like there was a lot of expansion here. I just feel like I've learned so much in the last month. Every day feels like a week. So
yeah, that's that God mode they talk about. You know what I'm saying?
It's different. It's different. It's definitely rarefied air. I'm excited to see how that affects the way that I look at my day to day when things get back to normal. But we'll get more into that later, man. What's going on your side?
Man, life is good and abundant on my end. It's been a time period similar to yours where I have felt time slow down, even though I feel like I'm speeding up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting to outcomes much faster than the deadlines. And it feels good, man. It feels good to be in that space. And I'm back in one instance, I'm back in another seat of being a student. So
yeah,
it feels good to like have a new teacher, some new information to consume, to digest, and see what comes from it. But I feel good about that too, man. So similar God body status at this time of life.
Nah, man, it's all good to the growth. And with that being said, obviously when you have, we're getting an echo on the audio.
Oh, on my side or your side?
Let's find out. Is it on my side or yours? Because I don't hear an echo.
I don't hear nothing.
Interesting. Let's roll through this and see if it goes away.
Right, exactly. I don't hear no echo.
Yeah, no, not at all. So we're just gonna roll through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so today's topic is definitely intersects with that notion of growth and expansion, because as you know, as you grow and shift through things, everybody doesn't grow and shift with you.
That's the point.
And so
Jameson, why are you out of the bed? Get in the bed. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to press mute, but I got my low man, so y'all gonna hear life. This is what it is.
I think that adds to the reality of the situation.
Thank you. All right, better.
Okay, we're better. Hey, listen, that's all we need. And we back.
Yeah, what up to everybody coming in the chat? My boy B Davis, Pose Incorporated. All right, audio is better. We're hearing. Thank y'all.
Exactly. No, I'm excited that people are on. We're in double digits within the first 3 minutes. So that's always a good sign.
That feels good.
Exactly, right? Not give him a snack. Kanisha, you showing out already?
Right, well, he did ask me for a snack, because if he did just eat lunch and have a snack and play outside before nap time, he knows what this is. He's not pulling game on this one.
Yeah, no, that was those snacks. We need new snacks.
Mm-hmm. He'll be all right.
Exactly.
Oh man, but he might be the parent side though.
You don't appreciate naps till you hit 27.
Yeah, say less. Love me a good nap at this point.
But yeah, so my brother's keeper. Obviously for us, this hits on different levels. You being a OG member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
To the air.
Exactly, right. And also, the overlap between the work that we do from a mastermind perspective, you from Zen Cave, me having a background working in fatherhood involvement and childhood development, Like the overlap is real in terms of this work as it comes to, I think, mobilizing, empowering men in general. And then also just having dudes that we grew up with from around the way and maintaining a lot of day one connections, but also realizing that everybody can't come with you. I think there are a lot of layers to this conversation. Obviously, we will not have time to broach all of them.
Yeah,
but I think this is a great time right now to really talk about what that looks like in a variety of contexts, because as you grow and develop and as the world shifts and as people are starting to plant their flags and draw those lines in the sand, whether it be because of politics, whether it be because of your views on gender equality or diversity and inclusion in general, a lot of relationships are splintered right now because people are choosing sides. How does that look with regard to being your brother's keeper? And let's start with the basics. What does that mean to you?
Touche. Well said. Great introduction there, good brother.
Finally found Cuban coffee in Vermont.
But my brother's keeper means a lot to me. It has been a part of my life in a lot of different ways since a very young age. I remember in Sunday school, Cain and Abel being one of the first Bible stories that I remember remembering. Like it stuck to me. And even as a young kid, looking at the question that was asked when God said, where's your brother? It was a very deep statement in a few words. So it was, am I my brother's keeper? Right? Like in terms of specifically, not in terms of principled, but like specifically, is it my responsibility to keep my brother? And that always stuck out to me because in a way, I thought he was actually asking God to know the answer, right? Not saying it in an arrogant or like, that dude's not my responsibility kind of way, but actually earnestly asking, is it my responsibility to keep my brother? And so as I got older, I've seen it play out in a lot of different ways, man, from, like you said, construct, circle getting smaller, everybody can't go as the higher you rise.
Exactly.
Being in a fraternity to being in several different types of brotherhoods or initiatory aspects. There's a very large difference, in my opinion, between brotherhood and being your brother's keeper. I do not believe that every single brother I have is the brother I need to keep, right? First and foremost. Secondly, I would say that every brother that I choose to keep is of a very specific construct. And so for me, when I say keep, I mean care for.
Yeah.
Do I care for my brother? And then that's the phrase that I would use to then give a definition to, which in my opinion, caring for your brother is involving accountability, grace, and love, right? Accountability goes without saying. If we are brothers and we are caring for one another, it is very hard to care for somebody that you don't hold accountable. That may seem like a lower piece on the totem pole of conversation, but in my opinion, it should be one of the highest. If we can't hold each other accountable, then it is actually very challenging for us to have grace for one another. And if we don't have grace for one another, in my opinion, we damn sure don't love each other. We may claim to, but we don't actually do it because love requires grace and accountability. Yeah, I know I like to lay my principles out, so this is just another aspect of that. But that would be my answer.
Okay.
JD, what about you?
Well, this is the annoying part because the overlap is pretty nuanced here. Definitely accountability is the main piece, and that changes from person to person. Like, like you can't hold everyone the same way, and there is no universal rubric. But I think accountability for you is, all right, you're only going to have a few drinks tonight. I'm not helping you walk home again. But that's how you get down. I don't necessarily move that way anymore. But when we got tight, that's how I was living.
That's how I was. Yep.
Whereas for someone else, it's okay. Well, from a provider or family standpoint, what are you doing to make sure that you're in line with the principles that you have set for yourself based on the person that you branded yourself as?
Yeah.
And that's, I think for me, keeping in mind that context counts. But back to the general pillars of accountability and grace as, I guess, the initial stages of what real love looks like. It's interesting for me because my bubble was always family centered. And so like one phrase that always echoes in my head is once you go outside that door, you leave everybody who loves you on the other side.
Wow.
So for me, I grew up, peace, what's going on, Buddha? But no, I think for me, it cultivated a very like inside, outside, or us versus them mentality. Like me and I think Tribal War was a really good example of that from the Damian Marley and Nas project. Which it was like it's me and my nation against the world, me and my clan against the nation, me and my family against the clan, then me and my brother against the rest of the family. So everything was tiered. As I continue to grow and develop and learn more, the less family in general became associated with blood relation and more associated with synchronicity and spiritual connection and like purpose of life path.
Gotcha.
So Exhibit A, we have conversations on a regular basis, like not even thinking anything of it in ways and on topics that I've never actually had with blood relatives.
Yes.
And so for me, a brother is anyone that is on a common path or has a similar purpose.
Yeah.
And how they show that and how they model it is where the nuance and the context comes in.
Yeah. I will say one thing I think it's important to add as we look at like what does it mean to be my brother's keeper, especially because we always are in this realm of divine masculinity. And what we mean by that when we say it. I think it is inherently important to identify and for us to get into the construct that exists around you can't really be a brother if you don't understand and respect your sister.
Facts.
Right? Because we are all going to interact with our sisters inherently. And so that's a major part, if not 50% of life. Hard stop, right? There's going to be women interacting with us at some point. And so if that's not a construct of our brotherhood in terms of how we show up, why we show up, and what we do when we show up, then I think we're doing a disservice to that accountability part as well, right? So from the divine masculine construct of my brother's keeper, it's got to be a part of how we assess our whole lives, not just brotherhood, right? Because you and I can be great brothers, but one of us is going home doing some dirt. The other one of us is going home to somebody else as opposed to who we're supposed to be with. And that's a construct of who we are. So we have to exist in that conversation and that accountability as well.
No, absolutely. And beyond that, I think the acknowledgement and respect for the feminine piece, like feminine energy is everywhere. Like most of the universe is that. So a lack of respect, or at least I would say a lack of understanding, or fundamentally a lack of respect for that, indicates a lack of self-knowledge, right? Learning how to respect and make space for the sisterhood piece was interesting for me because I have a sister who definitely set the tone for me.
Okay.
Oh, pause for kids.
Yeah. Son.
Yeah, so
Dad's got to finish some work and then I can get you some food, okay? All right.
Yeah.
Is my line muted or didn't mute?
It didn't mute.
Whatever. Y'all know who I am, man.
Listen. We out here with it. Y'all know what it is. But yeah, like growing up with a very no nonsense, I think model for what womanhood means from a sisterhood perspective, but having an age gap to where there are certain look out for your sister moments that I never really had to have because like I wasn't around when somebody would like take the ball and throw it over the fence at the playground. So like those fundamental childhood experiences where it's like, yo, look out for your sister by any means, like wasn't something I had to cultivate until I got nieces. And so for me, I find myself as a man still learning how to be a brother to a woman.
Gotcha.
And that's an interesting dynamic because you learn to manage feelings for women in a way that's not romantic, nor is it platonic. because like a sister it's a very specialized space. It's a very deep loving space. It's a very protective space. It's a very playful space, but it's platonic in that it's completely asexual, but it's very intimate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's completely non-romantic. And so I didn't realize for me how nuanced of the space that was until I did or said something stupid that hurt somebody's feelings. And it's like, oh, like my opinion matters to you like a lot.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me that it would. Let me learn to tread lightly over here
Yeah.
so that I don't cause any more undue harm to somebody that I care about.
That's heavy, man. Yes, Q, I see you in there. Yeah, we got a whole lot of those, cousin. But that's real on that tip, man. I think, and it's, you know, kind of a quick ode to the current popularity of things, because we always go there.
Listen, I don't, and you know what? Opinions matter too. So,
right, you know, the Black is King thing, right?
Yeah.
There was a real interesting part of it where somebody was speaking in the background, and I don't know where this audio came from. I'm actually going to try to find it. But he was saying that he has learned more about manhood from women than he has from men. And not necessarily from a lack of desire to learn from men, just the fact that women was either the major individuals in his existence when he was younger, and the fact that even as he got older, the ones who was really holding banners, holding principles, was women. So it teaches you a lot, and I think having that intimate but platonic space with aunties, sisters, cousins, nieces, it really does give you insight into what your care means for a woman. Because in my opinion, any intimate romantic relationship it should have some foundation of that platonic intimate relationship as well, right? Like that's the place where accountability, grace, and love really show up genuinely. So I think that's something that we are fortunate to have access to, that I would say for a long time I thought was a hindrance, right? Like I didn't think that being raised by a bunch of women, not having a bunch of, you know, other males around was a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing now, but I see the benefit that I've gotten, you know what I'm saying, from women having their hands on me and having their prayers on me for a long time. And I don't discredit it.
Having the prayers of the women in the village on you is good for anybody at any time.
Oh man.
I can confidently say that I am here today, happy, healthy, more or less sane, depending on who you talk to on what day.
Yeah.
Because of those silent prayers that I didn't know what happened, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I think all of that speaks to, once again, the fact that feminine energy is everywhere, including us, as the good brother Frank mentioned a couple comments ago. So with that being said, how does that now translate to how you relate to the men?
Yeah. So that is where it gets interesting, right? And yeah, shout out to everybody in the comments. Tuck, asexual intimacy is such a taboo topic in relationships. I do agree. But I think, in all honesty, it has made me much harder on my brothers than I would have otherwise been. I ain't really stood for too much BS for a long time. Even when I was standing for BS, there were still limits.
Exactly.
Things. And I honestly could not associate with any brother who went past those things I had determined as limits.
Absolutely.
As those limits have gotten reined in more and more, meaning like, you know, my own personal fuckboy aspects got reined in more and more, the allowable care that I have for someone who does not own their process of accountability became like less and less and less and less. And so it became even harder, where I thought it would become easier as I got older to have relationships with other men. It got harder. And it continues to get harder. Like till this day, it is still a challenge for me to just develop a bond with a brother. It takes time because I really do respect the rank and authority that comes with good character. And so if I see somebody who claims that they have good character through, you know, whatever title or whatever things they show up presenting themselves as, but then they actual like everyday character don't match that,
We got issues.
and not only do we got issues, like I would like to talk about those issues, and a lot of people don't. I think that's the whole point of gaining new brothers is like, oh, cool. I'm at a point where I need somebody, I need a new reflection. And so if this person can't give me that and I can't give it to them, it's like, why are you here? Like,
We're wasting each other's time.
we're wasting time, bro. So that's it for me, man. I don't inherently try to make it too deep because I'm still learning about it. But I do land on that principle of, yo, your character got to be impeccable to who you say you are. If you
Absolutely.
don't, if you're not that, don't say that. If you're working on that, say that. But if you want to embody it, that comes with allowing somebody else to kind of G-check you at times and be like, yo, the way you're going about that might not get you the outcome you want. And here's what I see based on what you've shown me. You could do it at what you want. But as a brother, it's my responsibility to make sure that you see that vantage point at least one time.
Exactly. And I'm not asking for us to agree. If anything, like I don't need an echo chamber. Like if I get to the point where I'm hearing what's inside my head from everybody, because it's one thing for like synchronicity to occur.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, every now and then it's sort of like a really great confirmation that I'm on the right track. But if we're all thinking and feeling and saying the same things all the time, well, now either you're lying to me or I really, really need to cast a different net. Because I can't throw this. Like I need there needs to be
right
somebody.
now.
Yeah, you can't. You need that grinder or that sharpening stone to provide some level of surface tension in order for your blade to get sharper. It's just facts. Like, something either needs to be adding on and or chipping away. If that's not occurring within my relationships, which once again, back to those principles that we speak on every episode, which by the way, we will continue to speak on every episode. That's why there are immutables.
Yeah.
The pillars have to be there. Like you can have a different model showing up may look differently for you, but if you're consistent, now it becomes my decision to decide to engage with whatever your paradigm is. And eventually, like back to the question of how this understanding of divine feminine relates to how I engage with the men in my life, I look for different ways to balance out. I want to say the hard line logic and order of masculine energy with the grace and subtle chaos of feminine energy. And so now I look for a lot of men in my life to be able to balance out their rationale with their emotions and then do it artfully. And so typically what that's ended up doing is put me in a circle with men who are older than me. Just because there's a certain level of like life experience and the ability to process either your really, really wise decisions or your less than wise decisions into something that you can learn and utilize. And so that's become my cheat code, so to speak. So I can just sit back and observe, like watching you with Jameson or watching Nell with his family, in a variety of roles. And so that allows me to cross-reference like, well, is this a principle that I have? If I don't have it, would I like to add it? Is it something that I feel like I want to uphold? If not, that's cool too. I can 86 it, but at least I'm constantly like finding ways to reiterate.
Yeah, I dig that. So Tuck, we see you.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put that up.
I was gonna say we gonna have to circle back to because that's the third topic we're gonna get into, right? With moving the goalpost. But you put it here, so we gonna do it now, homie.
It comes when it comes. So
it comes when it comes. We're kind of readjusting our script in a little bit. Amanda, what you're talking about is what we wanted to discuss relevant to what we call moving the goalpost. And so that concept of if let's say JD and I were running, both carrying the football, running to the end zone, and for me, all of a sudden the end zone is 20 more yards ahead, right? Now JD don't see that. So we're running at a certain speed and all of a sudden JD might speed up and I might slow down. He doesn't know why I'm slowing down. I know why he's still speeding up. And so in that moment is where we talk about like that accountability piece where as a brother, it's my accountability to be like, yo, G, the goalpost moved. Now, if he recognizes that, that's on him. If he doesn't, That's also
Still on me.
the other piece of the puzzle is his goalpost may not have moved yet. So he may not see the extra 20 yards that he's got to go, right? And for him, he may not have to, right? We don't really know what's going to happen in those instances. So that's inherently what makes it hard to either hold space or not hold space when, let's say, I am moving forward, but I notice that somebody else is not necessarily lagging behind, but hasn't accepted a certain part of their journey yet. And I think inherently that's why, you know, that Nipsey quote is what it is. When you talk about
smaller, everybody can't go.
Everybody just can't go. Like there's just not enough room up there. It gets tighter and tighter. But what I do believe is that it also gets more specific and more specific. So like while we may be on the same trajectory, if you accept yours, it may put you over here next to me, right? And now I can see you working alongside of me, but I don't necessarily feel connected to everything in which you're working towards. We may collide again at a different point, but there's plenty of brothers that I have that we still peoples. I still got their back. If they call me, I still be there for them in a second. But we're not likely talking on a regular basis or talking about the things that we are experiencing and going through simply because we may or may not accept the same lens of responsibility for how to handle them things, right? I think JD and I are very principled, if you haven't guessed. And so that is going to inherently make certain things challenging for others who have a different set of principles than we do.
Or no principles at all, because that is a thing. And I think back to your question, Tuck, how do I hold space for brothers that are not ready to be held accountable? That is a matter of really I have to decide whether or not I want to. And then the realization of I'm not, as someone who is a context creator or a village builder or a dot connector, whatever set of adjectives you want to use to describe what it is that we do, we're not required to hold space for everybody because once again, everybody can't go.
Nope.
So it's up to you to decide whether or not you want space to be made for you. And I think your codes of conduct dictate how much space you get. If you get space at all.
If you get space at all. Because sometimes people don't really actually need space.
And there is that. Like everybody doesn't need to be in my cipher and they don't need me to have space for them. Like you have your own circle.
In natural orders of rites of passage, which I think are very heavily removed for our society. But let's take, for example, the first rites of passage that normally exist in a young man's life, puberty, right? When you go through puberty, it does not matter how loving your parents are, how much they communicate with you. You got to go through that journey by yourself. They can talk you through it, but I guarantee you nobody's actually helping you with your first wet dream. You just have to go through it. And the thing about rites of passage that gets overlooked is that you can't short that process. So if you didn't go through the rites of passage in your adolescence, right, in your teens, in your 20s, like you can't short that work. And if
it's no coming at 42.
Thank you. And if I did go through that work at whatever stage I went through it, and I know it, and I understand what the other side of that work looks like, because these are all initiations. So there are secrets that we can't even speak about in these places because it's not to be said.
No, it's for you.
It's for you. But if you haven't gone through that and I can identify it because I have, what you want me to do? There's no amount of care. There's no amount of holding space for you that I can do other than like, go back and get what you once lost.
Sankofa.
That's it. You got to Sankofa that thing. That's really all you can do in those situations. But I'll give a principle to it because that's one of our big things here, right? But I do have one specific to this, and I call it 70-20-10. And most of my brothers will know because I've spoken about it.
Thank you.
70% of my tribe are people that I aspire to be like in some way. 20% are people that I feel are in line with me and we're running the same race of development. And 10% are people that I am choosing to lift up in some way because I have something that I know they could need. Now, that doesn't mean all encompassing to a person. So no one person sits in that category evenly. For example, my brother JD is married. I am not. So in terms of my 70, he sits in that 70 in terms of how I look to learn about being a husband. I have a child. JD is yet to be a father. So JD would be in my 10% when it comes to that. I'm helping him through my experience, whether directly or indirectly, understand what it means to be a father. JD and I are both on journeys of manhood and principle. So in that 20% space, this is how we show up in Divine Masculine Activated for all you beautiful people that are standing here or sitting there or what have you. But 70, 20, 10. It's based on how much value you see in something relevant to your brother, where you feel you are in your race, right? And who can stand beside you, so to speak, and who you really want to help. It's funny to me when I start to look at it further, because as I broke down my circle, it's still only like 5 people, right?
Yeah, no matter how you slice it. And that's sort of how you know, like, okay, no matter which way I turn this prism, like I'm sort of getting the same different hues.
Same different stuff. Yep.
And that's when it's like, okay, so I'm sitting here for a while. And I think that's why assessment on a consistent basis is so essential, because there may come a time where that is going to end up not being the case. Yeah. But until then, this is where it's parked. There's no need to move or adjust right now. And as you continue to ascend using that same paradigm that you shared, like a parable of like basically going up to the mountaintop, there's more pressure, so it gets narrower.
Yep.
Either y'all are going to become closer, or maybe some folks get squeezed out. But you're still on the same trajectory.
Same trajectory. That's
until you're not.
Yep. Yeah. And then when you're not, it just kind of it is what it is because it is. I think sometimes because we live in a society that tries to make everyone feel included, we often forget that we are inherently tribal people by nature. So
you can only hold with so many connections.
And everybody that look like you ain't your tribe. So when we have conversations around manhood or womanhood or how Black men should treat Black women, I often say to myself, which Black men you talking about? Are you talking about Black men that actually appreciate women or Black men that don't? Because if you're talking about Black men that don't, like, why are you associating with them? Why do you have to associate with them? Yes, son, come here if you need something. Right? But that's what we're looking at, man.
J-Mo, what's up?
This is the person who keeps asking for a snack, even though he's already eating lunch. I have fed.
You're going to have about 10 IG followers after that. You just touched a baby on a camera. Lord, it's a wrap. Go ahead, cut your DMs off now, Playboy. It's a wrap. Pause for fatherhood, y'all. I'm going to set my coffee while he does awesome things. See, he just did a fist bump explosion with a beautiful Black baby child. That is going.
Go ahead, baby. I'll see you in a little bit. Everybody, don't never stop. It's like a rolling, not a stopwatch.
They're gonna vote you in the office now.
That's what. Hey, listen, man. I can show you how to make. Never mind. I'm not gonna do that.
No, it's too late to start it. You gotta finish it.
I can show you how to make America great again for real if you want me to.
Hey, talk about it. Talk about it.
But that point around, sometimes it's going to be even more challenging to assess brotherhood based on like already existing community relations and initiations, right? So like the day one diatribe that we talked about.
Let's get into it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you do with your day one homies when you want a new day?
Yeah, exactly. When you on day 2.
Yeah.
Exactly. When it's next week.
Yep. Yeah. Or those shifts are gonna happen, and it's like, what do you do with that? This is where for me it goes back to what I was saying about like we are inherently tribal, so it is challenging. Inherently, fundamentally, it's going to be a challenge for us because we're not supposed to be picking our tribes. That's where we get caught up. Like we go around like, oh, where do I fit? Nigga, that wasn't inherently supposed to be your choice. You were supposed to be with the tribe that you were with until you were of an age or an understanding where you could go create your own. Until then, you had to sit with your family, with your people, with your hood, with your whatever. We can't do that here because of the way that we have been deconstructed in terms of our tribal natures, right? Even though we are still tribal, we click up, we link up, we have squads, crews, gangs, fraternities, sisterhoods, brotherhoods, what have you. They
Can
are
I be controversial and lump fraternities and gangs in the same category? Because essentially they are the same purpose.
I mean, you could put both of our political parties in there too if you want. You really want But no, man, that point of us being able to choose our tribes really sits with my spirit sometimes, because it's like, how do you know what you're choosing is right for you other than how you feel or how you think? Back to that construct of belief. So if your belief is shifting and growing and changing and you're choosing a tribe every single time, of course, like your day one homies ain't gonna be there on day two or a new day, because you just shifted your tribe. That's not your tribe anymore. And every time you go to a new level of understanding or enlightenment, the tribe inherently is going to change.
Mhm.
Kind of like going back to self for us, because we don't come into families who have large structures of tribalism where like I could pretty much stay in my family's compound until I was 20. You know what I'm saying? Where you see in certain other places.
And then you decide if you want to be with the rest of the world, or you stay here and just add on another layer to the house because they got steel girders sitting at the top just in case.
Oh man, right? Like that is inherently what is, in my opinion, missing from how we actually can be our brothers keepers. Is we got to develop better tribes from jump. And so one of the things that I'm really big on personally is, regardless of what goes on in my family, how much I love them, honor them, and grow and respect and care for them as I get older, I see myself as a patriarch. Like I said, on our very first call, like I am the greatest thing my ancestors ever hoped for, and walk and talk and spit for them on a regular basis. I have to see myself that way, because it's like, it's got to start somewhere.
I was gonna say, for you, that's essential. Like that's part of the missing link that you had to fill in. So I think it was gonna be like, either you was gonna choose the thug life or the thug life was gonna choose you. That's your job.
That's my job.
For me, it's figuring out how to do a continuation of that and then evolving what that looks like, because the old model doesn't necessarily translate fully now. So like, I have to reform it. That's that's re-sculpting a block. You got to work with the clay. Like, you had to get it from the ground and then make the block and then start. Like, what has that looked like from the mentality of creating what your inner circle looks like, while also creating a new paradigm for your blood relatives? Because you're balancing both at the same time.
Yeah. So I would say that I have only chosen one family member, right? Like one brother that I call family, that was like actually divinely ordered, because it's the only friend that's still here as far back as I can go. It's my oldest friend, right? We've been best friends since I was in the 11th grade and he was in the 10th grade. And
I know what you're talking about. Shout out to the homie too, by the way.
The homie, E Money Bags, Dr. Love, Evan Jones, Evan Antonio Jones, my brother from another. But yeah, and it has been weird, because like we haven't always been close, but we've always been, like, I would say, in each other's 20%. Consistently. And so while we may fluctuate in the 70 and the 10, we are always in for the larger part in each other's 20. And outside of that, it's kind of just been like, all right, these are gonna work. Maybe not, right? Okay, these are gonna work. Maybe not. With family, it's been a really interesting space, because of where I sit in my family, right? So I'm the oldest of 32 grandkids on my mom's side, and I'm somewhere in the middle of an ungodly amount of grandkids on my dad's side. And so, but I am closer, right, in terms of because my mother raised me, I'm closer to my mother's side of the family. And so in that space, I've always felt like an uncle and a brother rather than a nephew and a cousin.
Yeah, because you're on the older end of the kids.
Because I'm on the older end, but I also sit in this really weird seat by myself.
Because you're an only child.
And nobody's my age. Literally, there's nobody my age, because I'm the first grandkid, right? So everybody technically, and I could have came out in a different bag where like I have an uncle that's a year younger than me or something like that.
Yeah, we got those.
My youngest uncle is 1 year older than me. So even in that, like, I still ended up sitting in that seat. So most of my life, I think I spent trying to answer that question. Like, how do I fit? Where do I fit? Who am I supposed to be? And I came up with a lot of different answers that I don't think ever really were the answers my family meant for me, but I internalized them as this is what they wanted me to be, right? Like they want me to be this successful college graduated buttoned up version of a black man. Like I put that on myself. They never.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you did go to fam, so like you checked off some pretty good boxes, and you played alpha. Like you was, all you need to do is like become a Freemason and get.
Oh God.
And you pretty much
and be a deacon at somebody's church, right?
That's it. Start filling in the leather sandals with the khaki shorts on.
Oh God, I do have a lot of khaki shorts though. But that once I started to realize that they didn't actually desire that for me, I had put that principle on them and then lived up to it unsuccessfully. It became so much easier to relate to family and build bonds and build relationships. And it's taking time because, you know, we're older. So for a lot of us, we're at different levels of processing new information. And I believe you are only as old as your ability to process new information, right? So those in my family that are still able to process, like we be vibing, man. Like little cuz hit me the other day. We was watching Black is King at the same time, and she was like, "Cuz, that shit you be talking about." And I was like, "Holla at me when you're ready," right? But I know that space exists now, and it's not phony. It's not made up. It's not something I aspire to. Like this is just who I am, and I get to be this fully, and be a member of my family. I'll end with this where it gets challenging, right? Mm-hmm. Is in the same areas where it gets challenging with brotherhood, sisterhood, and relationships. For people who do not inherently accept their responsibility and accountability for growing in themselves and making their own decisions and growing based on their own challenges. Anybody that is in that bucket, it's going to be challenging to work with them. For me, I'm fortunate in the sense that like, those aren't the people who have been the most influential in my life, right? So that's not my mother. It's not my father. It's not my sister. I know in those relationships, that's really hard because that bond is so thick, but the
alignment is not.
Yeah, man. So like, does that show up for you? Do you have to deal with that other side of the coin where it's like these blood bonds are thick, but these covalent bonds are not?
That's it to the T, for the opposite reason as it is for you. Like I am my maternal grandmother's youngest grandchild, but my mom gave her mother both her oldest and youngest grandchildren. So my sister is my maternal grandmother's oldest grandchild.
Wow.
And I'm the youngest of like 5 in a blended family. So like, number one, you learn to grow up fast because it's like, all right, yeah, I know you 8, but you're not about to be hanging around this doing 8-year-old shit. Like you need to go ahead and tighten up, bro. This is how the world works. I don't know what to tell you. Yes, get it right and get it right very quickly, like yesterday. But then also like sort of in the middle of a cool 40 some odd grandchildren on my father's side, and have like the nature of the clan of families be so overlapped that I have cousins on both ends. So I definitely have cousins that are like, you're my uncle, but technically I'm older than you. Well, not technically, I am older than you.
Literally, you are older, yeah.
Exactly, or having cousins that I thought were aunts and uncles because of the age. So you get a lot of different pepperings of wisdom. But also like having the dad that was like, wasn't necessarily the oldest, but decided to play the patriarch role because he was the one that sort of like cleaved to that aspect of my maternal grandfather that way. And that set the tone for what I thought the successful Black male paradigm looked like. And that's the principle that I superimposed on one half of the family and lived up to actually not too badly. It became like the whole suffering from success detail where I self-identified with it and then was able to live up to it. And it became its own like self-perpetuating thing. And then I just ended up putting like this undue amount of pressure on myself for some reason. On the other hand, it was like from the youngest on one side where everybody's kind of doing awesome stuff, like Sis killing the game, Big Bro killing the game. Every time I move forward, like I go home and it's like, okay, yeah, bro, we see you, but like we doing this, so like, just
We're waiting on you up here.
yeah, exactly, and not even so much that it's like you gonna get to it, but just like don't like I see you when you doing it, but like in time, don't rush it. Like you're not here yet, and not even like on some trying to suddenly stuff, but it's a great perspective, and so I've learned now to use that as a way to keep me balanced, as opposed to use that from the perspective of the goalpost has shifted. I have to apply more pressure on myself to generate more output because I have to get where they are. It's like, no, dude, they started like 15 years before you did. They're supposed to be there. Like, don't rush for that. Like, did you read the fine print? Look at the detail.
Exactly. You know what you got to do in order to have what they have?
Exactly. It's like, nah, bro, like, enjoy your journey.
Yeah.
And so using both of those examples to reinforce the same point of what's yours is yours. You can't miss out on what's yours. It's yarn. So make sure you pay attention with each step of the process that you're in. And then you'll sort of look up and look back and realize, oh, okay, we've advanced 15 spaces. Back to the question about covalent bonds. It's weird because I grew up with a lot of extremes of examples, both good and bad. So it became a situation where I had to, number one, accept the fact that people are people and really adjust my rubric on what qualified as an upstanding example. Sometimes people exist in your life to show you what not to do. That's an upstanding example if you get the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
You should still be just as grateful for that person as the one who was like, quote unquote, the picture perfect example that you want to emulate.
Yeah.
Actually learn how to task your relationships based on what that need is.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of a nod back to your 70-20-10. Like as it comes to family, I'm going to look to this uncle. As it comes to business and development, I'm going to look to you. As it relates to how to have fun and not really give a damn about people's opinion on what you do with your life, definitely looking at you. I don't confuse those roles.
Yeah.
Because the reality of the situation is all of those people have been those people from day one. They've actually never changed. So even if you're like a drug abusing like alcoholic, you've been there from day one. I know what to expect from you. I can plan around it.
Yes, effectively too.
That's what it was. So in theory, that kind of makes you principled.
There you go. Thank you.
And so long as I don't confuse that and try to put you in a different box, it's a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I think a lot of times when we speak of principles, because our principles propel us forward, it can look and sound like the only type of principles are the ones that are good, right?
Which is nonsense. Principle just means
there are a ton of like bad principles that are still principled, and there's something to be learned from somebody's ability to dedicate themselves to a bad principle, right? It may not be something you want to internalize, but you can definitely learn from it.
Absolutely.
And I think your whole reality, so to speak, with regards to your position with your sisters and your brothers, but then where you sit in your family, is a great little location to sit for you, because like you get to sit in this, like, again, little location, but has a big presence. You know what I'm saying? And you can travel out of it, but when you come back to it, it's not hard to know where you belong and where you make sense, right? To your point, like Tuck just commented, like you can't miss out on what's yours because you know exactly where you're supposed to be. And for you, accepting that looks as if it is really helping you do all the stuff that you're supposed to do for you, and probably is helping you with any aspect of survivor's remorse.
Ooh, thank you. Okay, that's how I was gonna come in. Talk about it.
I'm gonna get a little dish off real quick.
No worries. Listen. Okay, Crystal Pete. Thank you.
Yeah. But our third and final piece of the Am I My Brother's Keeper topic is survivor's remorse. What does it look like when you have made it and left people behind? What happens to those bonds? JD, I will let you jump on that one first because you kind of already touched on it, but bring it back to the brotherhood side of the conversation.
Well, see, this is a real tricky one for me because now you gotta apply, or rather, like I feel compelled to go a bit deeper into the family detail. So, like back to the blended family situation, it's like both parents were married, had kids, went through very, very hectic divorces, which you can really just kind of call divorces because very few divorces are not
hectic. Yes,
exactly right. And then I came from both of them, and so it creates this dynamic where like I am nestled comfortably in the middle of two very different Venn diagrams, right? And that gave me a very funny enough, thank you, Kanisha, awkward and uncomfortable because you grow up with this weird understanding of tension and you don't know why, but if you're perceptive, kids pick up on everything. They don't have a frame of reference for what it is, but they feel it.
Yeah.
And so I always noted like it felt like there were eggshells / landmines all over the place. But of course, family business that occurs before you're born is technically not your business, even though you're still like beholden to the implications of it.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a very interesting experience because like I feel like I shouldn't go too far this way. I have absolutely no idea why, because y'all jokers ain't trying to tell me, but something's going on over here. And for their standpoint, it was always, why do you care? You weren't born then. It's like, because I can feel it.
Deeply.
Probably deeper than you because I'm not gotten to that whole, that parable of what happens in the house stays in the house. We don't talk about it. And so that's really what urged me in a direction of sort of becoming like, I guess, the village healer, so to speak, because I had to find ways to like reach into the ether and pull out the answers that human beings didn't want to give me. So it's like, by the time I'm asking you this question at the age of 25, I've been known from when I was 19. I just want to hear you own it. Yeah.
Which is wild because that is largely the seat that I noticed you play in terms of brotherhood.
Yeah. That's how I learned it. So, but I think speaking truth to life, like it's more so standing in the gap for the bros that sort of played the 1 foot in, 1 foot out with regards to, your red pill and your blue pill life tactics, right? Yeah. If you get my drift. And learning how to support the ones with the degrees and also the ones, with the criminal records.
Which are degrees.
Which, listen, it's all cool.
It's all cool.
And so it's cool because it gives you a very, very interesting like toolbox of skills, right? And in the same breath, it's like up to a certain point, just because you on lockdown and you serving a bid, you're still my brother.
That's it.
I still have certain expectations of you. You still need to learn and develop. You still need to grow and develop skills. If you have your schedule preset for you, you don't have to pay rent. You get a certain amount of meals a day. You've got time to sit still. What do you think you want to learn? Cool. Here go these books.
Go get it. Yep.
Go get it. So by the time you hit the bricks, I'm gonna do what I gotta do on this side so that I don't lose you to the beast. Because I'm still my brother's keeper. Exactly. Like I'm going to make sure I at least give you the option so you don't feel like you need to fall back to the same old shit when you get out. However, I fully expect you to own the decisions that you made that got you there.
That's a part of it too, right? The ownership of it. And I think it inherently becomes easier to own what we're responsible for once we realize that most of the stuff that we're doing is not inherently who we are.
Facts.
So like when I make mistakes at this point, I pay very close attention because I am who I'm supposed to be. And if I'm getting it wrong, I'm missing something. But I look back at my younger years and a lot of the stuff that I would do that I would deem completely irrational, irresponsible, or just downright uncouth at this point in my life, I kind of laugh at myself. Like,
you can't take it. You realize that you're peopling.
And it's just like, silly little Negro, you thought you knew so much. And I didn't. And
that's who you was when you got it.
So like, for me, that's where the survivor's remorse comes in now. Like I don't have it because I can see myself in everybody that I associate with. I can see myself in people I don't associate with because of that feeling thing. Like once you tap in and start accepting the balance of your yin and yang and cultivating it, you're going to feel people whether you want to or not.
Say it again.
Be your people, right? So like I noticed beginning of COVID, right? All of us are on Zoom calls. We having these meetings. When you hear that doo-doo on Zoom, I remember in April feeling like deep abundances of anxiety for different reasons. Like I would hear one sound and it'd be like, I'm mad. Another sound like, oh, I'm real uncomfortable. And I started to realize like I was able to feel my coworkers through the Zoom in those moments. And it was like, oh, word. So when I'm in a meeting with y'all, I've learned how to develop my skill set to shut y'all up physically. But in these sonic spaces, like I don't necessarily know how to shut your energy off when I can feel it coming through a screen or through a phone. And I had to sit with that. Like it took me about a month and a half to even identify it because I was going through depression. Like I was in the bed every day. I couldn't do certain things. And I'm like, why am I depressed?
And most of that wasn't yours. That was everybody else.
Fine. And so when it comes to brothers, like I'm very, very good at identifying like what is not mine that I'm receiving from somebody else. So if a brother is feeling a bit of envy or like I made it and they are being left behind, like I feel it. I felt it way before it even became a conversation. So if it exists, it's likely between me and somebody who I don't even associate with anymore because life already took care of that. But if it's somebody that's still here, like we were already addressing that. And I think that's a big point in terms of like how, again, to kind of bring us to a close or start to close with regards to, am I my brother's keeper? You can say yes if you are proactively approaching it. If you are not, you should probably say no. If you are keeping your brother reactively, you're not really keeping them because you're not caring for them. You're not giving them any of the things that you can see that they are reflecting, right? Because they may or may not see those things yet. It's times where you and I will chat up and it'd be like, yeah, I just thought about that a week ago. Cool. Thank you for the confirmation. Because we was already in it. You know what I'm saying? And that happens a lot of times. More often than not, actually.
This one's kind of a basic function of conversation.
That's it. But I know with others that we are in brotherhood with, it's not always that same way. And a lot of times we are the first ones to broach a conversation with a brother. And it's like, oh.
Different angles. We'll both randomly text them.
That's it. And it's like, true. I'm gonna hit you on that next week, bro. Like I gotta sit with it for a little bit. And it's like, take your time. But you know, we see it, we call it, and we expect brothers to do the same all the time.
Yeah, so with that, it becomes now how like the level of expectation of our brothers on us as that role. Because when you sort of peg yourself as the one who like filters out or disseminates certain information, like holds people accountable, it puts you in a weird space sometimes because people now looking at you like, okay, so what you got for me this week? And it's like, nothing.
Nothing.
I'm sitting here smoking a joint. This is all I have. This is all
for you, but I think that then goes back to like the tribal aspect of us choosing our tribes. Like in choosing your tribe, you also inherently think, or at least for me, I know I did very early on. I thought that my tribe was supposed to have all the answers. So, oh yeah, I chose them. They're right for me. They got everything I need, as opposed to they're probably just going to reflect everything that I think I need at this moment. And I will eventually outgrow that.
And not necessarily them, you outgrow the need.
Exactly.
They relate to their need, whatever that is. They either ascend with you, or life sort of gracefully pulls them away.
Which I think is beautiful because there's a lot of, because you and I both have brothers that are mostly older than us. There's some shit that they figured out that we constantly bring up, and they silly little Negro us.
Absolutely. I thank God for it.
Yeah, personally, I do, because when I bring something up to a brother and he kind of brushes it off, because it's like, we've probably talked about this before, or you know what I'm going to say here. It's like,
this again. This is so funny.
It's me. No problem.
We don't even gotta go deeper into that. Thank you for that chuckle. It was kind of, but feelings grow back. I'll get over it.
Yeah, man.
The weird phenomenon for me is like hearing that and being like, "That's an issue. You haven't. How did you make it this far without learning that lesson? Like, bro, like, have you not been 19? But then you realize lessons, they don't come in order. Like, you get it.
Like. And that's a whole probably other topic we could drill down on those individualized situations, because there's so many of them that's like, it really does make you scratch your head. Like what have you been doing with your life?
Get here.
And then, you know, even back to your point, like when you got brothers and homies that have been on lockdown and they come out here and you see them making like really diligent strides, it's like, if this man who has not, like, I got homies that went in before social media existed, like before iPhones existed, and now
Exactly. Crushing it.
killing the game in all aspects of the
How
world.
the fans outdo you? Like how?
Yeah, like if you ain't had nothing on your back to that level, and it's not to make one man's struggle more or less significant to other, but it does make me scratch my head like, wow, what have you been doing? With all of this freedom that you claim you don't have.
And that's when I turned into like the jerk, I think, because then it's like, yo, like to a certain extent, I love you needs to be. I know there's like a 15-year age gap, but little homie, fix your like lovingly, like with a pat on the back, but I need to look you in your face and like stop being a little bitch. Like, but also, but here's something to eat, dog. Like I got you. I will support you if possible. You tripping right now.
Yeah, and that's true, man. I mean, hey, that's and I think that is where whole self, like we talk about, like we are who we are, and that ain't always gonna be nice, cute, and fun. You're not always gonna like me. Like my inherent method to holding you accountable may be through snarky ass wit that you don't like. If it's a conversation that we have had at least thrice, expect it. Like really expect it. And that's to be said, I think, across both of our boards. Like if we have touched on this issue at least 3 times and you are coming back to me again, expect a little bit of shade to be thrown. Because
bro, no.
Come on, man.
Sir,
right?
Listen.
It can't be the same question.
No, you don't have to like it, bro. This is not, and this is where it comes down to, like, when it comes to certain details, especially brotherhood and the love piece, I need to let you know that lovingly, you don't have to enjoy this. It's not here for your enjoyment. You just got to do it.
Look, what did Shawty say in the 300 movie when she hit Buddy and was like, hey, "You are not going to enjoy this. I am not your queen."
It's not for your enjoyment. This is for you.
Supposed to get, but you may not enjoy it. Yeah, yep. And and on that note, we have come to the end of our program for today. Good brother, I thank you for this, man. Like we hitting a really big milestone. We are 5 episodes in. We are at the last episode where you will see just our beautiful faces. We are going to start pushing this thing a little bit further in terms of how we have these conversations, who we bring into the conversations, and eventually, prayerfully, hopefully, where we get to have these conversations. But I'm eternally thankful to you, brother, for allowing us to keep this space going, and we stay true. We stay disciplined to this bi-weekly.
Somehow, and it's like, okay, like everything. When you commit to it, the universe really does conspire to help you. So we thank you for those who watch. I sincerely hope that anything we give may be, a lighthouse in whatever your storm is, or hopefully helps you avoid a storm that's completely needless. I'm definitely excited to get these queens on here. I saw the chatter happening in the comments. Just know it's on the way.
It's coming.
It's on the way. We over the stove with it. It's gumbo, not stir fry. So it might take a minute, but it's gonna get here.
Ooh, I like that. Well, on that note, we will be back with you all in 2 weeks. Same bat time, same bat channel. We will have a guest. We will be letting you know who that guest will be. We will not be telling you who the guest is right now because we want to keep you in suspense.
When is the next? What are we looking at? Mid-August for the next joint?
Yeah, it should be. Because today is the 2nd.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be around about the 14th to 15th or something like that. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, it'll be a good time frame. And we gonna make it do what it do, regardless of what we gotta do.
Exactly. And with that being said, Wellness Warrior salute. Until such time, y'all be blessed and stay hydrated. Peace.